Good afternoon. We're just a few minutes out from the grants, budget, financial management breakout session as a part of the ERS NIFA USDA Career Fair. We'll be getting going in just a few minutes.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Or for those of you in the Mountain and Pacific time, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the breakout session for USDA grants, budget, and financial management as part of the USDA Virtual Career Expo for the Economic Research Service and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Both organizations recently relocated to Kansas City, and they are seeking qualified candidates for a variety of positions. We held a career expo at K-State Olathe in November and wanted to host another event for job seekers in the Kansas City region. Today, you're going to hear specifics about the important work that NIFA does in grants, budget, and financial management, and some of our exciting career opportunities. In addition, representatives from the Human Resources Division that serves us are also attending to help answer HR-specific questions. I wanted to cover a few rules of engagement for the webinar today. The webinar will be recorded and posted with a transcript and an FAQ document on work4usdakc.com. That's work, F-O-R, USDAKC.com, and the career pages of the Economic Research Service and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Participants are currently muted and will remain that way for the duration of the webinar. The chat feature will be used by the moderator, me, to share important messages. If you have a question, please submit it through the Q&A feature. And you can see where that Q&A feature is pointed out there. After the presentation, we'll have time for your questions and answers. Your question may be answered in writing through the Q&A feature, or asked live during the question and answer time. All questions will become part of the FAQ document that will be posted online. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Matthew Faulkner, NIFA's Deputy Director over our Office of Grants and Financial Management. Matthew?
Thanks, Bill. Let me share my screen here. Let's try this again. Host disabled participant screen sharing. You're on mute, Bill. Here we go. All righty. Okay. So as Bill said, I am the Deputy Director for the Office of Grants and Financial Management. Welcome all of you participating in this webinar and the many exciting federal opportunities here to serve within NIFA. We're going to shine the light on some of those for you today. NIFA investments transform lives, and we do that through addressing the food and agriculture needs of the nation and the world. As you can see from the map here on the screen, that represents the 112 land grant colleges and universities to a large extent that we work through to provide our priorities for food and feedstocks that we address through our programs. Who are we? Well, we are the lead federal agency that provides extramural funding for food and agricultural sciences. This is just a little bit about who we are, but there's certainly much more information on NIFA and what we do in our programs, and you can find that at nifa.usda.gov. So I encourage you to go there after this webinar to get additional information on our agency. NIFA was created through the Food Conservation and Energy Act of 2008, formerly known as the Farm Bill. A little bit on our funding here is that we have $1.7 billion in budget appropriations for 2020, and we provide competitive and capacity grants through those funds. Our mission is about research, education, and extension, providing that knowledge of research and education to those who need it. And our vision is really about bringing together discoveries, education, and engagement to address agricultural challenges. And you see at the bottom of the screen here, we've got the process, which is really about us discovering through our partners answers and being able to translate that in terms of information and innovation to provide real solutions to the things that are affecting food and fiber needs across the nation and the world. Where do we work? Well, we had been predominantly in Washington, D.C., and that's actually where I've spent the last 25 years as well in the Department of Agriculture. But today we've moved the agency to Kansas City. The building you see on your right is where we plan to be come October of this year, our new facility. But we're excited and happy to be here in Kansas City. If you can see here, I'm also wearing appropriate NIFA attire to represent the great Kansas City area. How do we function? Well, we receive a number of inputs to the processes that we do here. They come from Congress in terms of appropriations, the administration in terms of priorities that they provide us, and then our stakeholders and partners that submit applications. So The blue line you see here is really the life cycle of activities that we manage within NIFA. And so we receive these applications, and we go through this process, life cycle of grants management, to make sure that we're ultimately providing the outcomes and impacts to our producers, processors, and consumers. Well, those grants fall into basically three types of activities. And using available land and other resources, our investments are targeted to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of our food and feed stocks. And so we do this through research by addressing complex issues facing our nation and our world. We do it through education, which is the training of our next generation of scientists, educators, producers, and citizens. And lastly, through extension, where we're doing this knowledge transfer of research and education to the people who need it the most. Here's a list of the multitude of programs that we administer here through the agency. You can see the very top one there is called AFRI. That's the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative. That's the majority of our funding for the agency goes through that. Multiple vehicles there for grants, but we have a number of others as well, as you can see, that provides support for our research, education, and extension activities. Here is the org chart for NIFA. And the area that we're focusing on in this webinar will cover two areas we have circled here. One is the Office of Grants and Financial Management. We'll be providing you more detailed information on opportunities here in Kansas City. And then we also have our budget staff that will be walking through opportunities there. So on that note, I want to introduce to you Paula Geiger. She's the director of the budget staff, and she will highlight some of the opportunities within the budget organization for NIFA. Paula?
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm Paula Geiger, and I've been with USDA for 29 years and budget officer here at NIFA for 9 years. Sorry, apologies. The budget process that the budget staff is responsible for administering is a long process, but we are in charge of doing the president's budget proposal, the congressional development, and watching what the appropriations action is on the Hill, and then executing the appropriated budget to support our programs. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. The formulation branch and the budget staff helps to develop this budget. We work on all of the materials that justify the budget throughout the process. We also track what's happening with congressional action to determine what the impact is for funding amounts and other decisions that are made for our programs and our budget. We also look at what the legislative provisions are that are pending on the Hill, and also what gets enacted to determine the impact on our programs. I've put there a sign that says, "No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law." The committees on appropriations in the House and the Senate will tell you nothing can be spent unless they've done their work, and they have the power of the purse. Next. This is a overview of the NIFA annual budget process. And as you can see, it takes a path where we get input from our stakeholders, both internally in USDA and outside of our agency. And we start planning for the next budget in March through May, and then we have to submit our budget to the department. That budget goes through a review at the Office of Management and Budget, and then there's a budget prepared by Congress. So that is the process that takes a full year to complete, and then some. So some years it's actually takes a couple of years. So we're working on 3 years at a time. So it gets complicated, but we get through it because that's what we do. The next slide, please. The execution branch supports all of the agency leadership to ensure that our funds are spent for the purpose, time, and amount that is allowed based on the law. And we monitor all of the agency spending that we have for operating our programs. So all of the administrative costs, we track those. We also analyze trends in appropriations as well as spending, and we report out to Congress, the President's Office, OMB, the other entities in the department, what we've spent and the outcomes of those investments. Our FY 2020 budget is $1.7 billion, as Matthew mentioned. And so the execution of all of those funds comes through the budget staff. The staffing is broken out into 2 branches. I have an execution branch and a formulation branch. The types of positions that we have include the budget analyst, the program analyst, and the administrative officer. We have several positions in budgeting and program analysis who help to check what's happening in legislation, review the impacts of legislation and budget proposals on the agency's programs, and prepare all of the budget materials that are required to justify our budget. And with that, I will toss it back over to Matthew.
Thanks, Paula. Certainly your activities are all about, where the rubber meets the road. We can't move forward and execute any programs without the great work that you and your organization is doing, so thank you. A little bit about the Office of Grants and Financial Management. We support NIFA's mission through the administration of grants, cooperative agreements, and other forms of federal financial assistance. We have 3 divisions that do that body of work: policy and oversight, awards management, and financial management. And they are providing service over the entire life cycle of the awards that we certainly they establish policies, they obligate funds, and they provide oversight to ensure compliance with regulations and policies. And then we also provide technical assistance to our applicants, grantees, and stakeholders. Here is a org chart of OGFM. You can see the 3 divisions and their branches that make up the totality of this portion of our organization. In terms of our priorities, today it really has to do with administering those agency policies to make sure we're in compliance with guidelines established by the Code of Federal Regulations. We have to obligate funds through our financial systems And then we also conduct the pre and post award actions to support our grants, cooperative agreements, loans, reimbursable, and endowments. So let me introduce you to Chris Kopenbarger. He's been our acting division director for the awards management division, and he's going to walk you through many of the opportunities that exist, as well as the function of the awards management division. Chris? You're on mute.
I am now not on mute.
You're good.
Management division is the largest of the three divisions within OGFM. I think we're about 40% of the staffing. And our principal role for the agency is to provide operational support in administering grants and other transaction types. So we do this throughout the entire life cycle, pre-award, award, post-award, and closeout. And we work an awful lot with our recipient organizations, such as the land grant institutions. We also deal with small businesses, with states, with other federal agencies, with a whole range of recipient organizations. We also work a lot with our internal stakeholders, with the program offices. Matt showed you a diagram earlier with about 60 different programs that we have at this agency. So we work with those national program leaders. We work with our sister OGFM divisions as well, and ensuring that the obligations happen, that payments are being made through Treasury's ASAP or through IPAC system. So next slide, Matt. So we go through this entire life cycle. So as an organization, we're really looking for people that have knowledge and experience and an interest in the operational aspects of pre-award and award. So we have an inbox where we take in inquiries from our partners. So we're looking for people that have a strong interest in providing great customer service, in helping people to find those opportunities, and then assist them in preparing, for example, registering in SAM.gov and these types of things. So for those of you in the audience who work for land grants, or perhaps you're a recipient or a subrecipient of either federal or state federal assistance, this is the type of work that we do, at least from the federal perspective. So on the award side, we certainly we issue the awards. We work with our partners in FMD to create the obligations and make funds available. And then we communicate with our recipients when they've received those funds, or when they receive the award. So next slide, Matt. We walk people through the post-award elements as well. Again, we talked about the payments. We spend a fair amount of effort on monitoring, assisting our partners with registering in the various systems that they need access to, for ensuring that they're providing the right type of information. So those of you who have experience in monitoring, that certainly is a huge aspect of what we do. And then we get to the closeout phase, and here we deal with reporting, financial reporting, progress, and other forms of progress reporting, such as property and progress reporting. So next slide. As mentioned earlier, we've got these two major program areas, capacity and competitive. Our capacity is a fancy way of saying formula grants, where there's a prescribed formula. We punch in the values for the various variables to the equations, and then out comes a number that gets assigned to a recipient. And we enter into an agreement with those organizations. This is about 35% of our portfolio. And then we have the competitive programs. This is the larger component to our agency. And we deal with just about any kind of organization. Whereas on the capacity, we dealt with land grants. We largely deal with just about everybody under the sun for the competitive programs. And it's our our team's responsibility to work with, in particular, the national program leader, but other stakeholders in helping our partners become successful in executing their work as prescribed under the awards. Next slide. Finally, one of our major tasks is grants modernization. This is part of NIFA's larger effort, the RE mission areas, and for that matter, the department, well, for that matter, the federal government's effort to do more online in a more intelligent way in terms of processing, managing data, and sharing information. So within that framework, we've been working on updating our grant solution. We've moved to Easy Fed Grants, which is an enterprise grant solution from the department level, while still maintaining our native systems as we continue to move forward. So Awards Management Division, the grant specialists play a critical role in helping building the requirements, helping with the design to build out a solution that meets both our needs and our external users, including the recipients and other stakeholders. So if you've got an interest in providing great customer service and in the administration and providing oversight for federal financial assistance, and if you like in your spare time to do IT grant solutioning, the Awards Management Division would be a good place to submit your applications. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Again, many opportunities there in the Awards Management Division. Next up, we have the Financial Management Division, and that is Waits Rollerson, who is the division director, and he's going to introduce you to some of the functions within that division and the opportunities. Waits?
Good afternoon. Thanks, Matt.
You
Thanks,
bet.
Chris. I guess we'll move to the next slide, please. I will apologize in advance. I've been kicked out of the session twice, so I hope it doesn't happen while I'm speaking. In the Financial Management Division, in a nutshell, we are the core accounting group, and we do a lot of the accounting functions. We have two branches. The first branch I'm going to talk about is our Financial Operations branch. And to boil it down, they have two main functions. They are recording our obligations, in accounting speak, our liabilities, in the NIFA accounting records, as after AMD made the award. So we're ensuring that our recording of our obligation to pay the grantees in the future is properly recorded. The second main function that we do is that we are making funding available through a Department of Treasury application called ASAP. The way ASAP works is that each individual grant is going to have an account. And if, let's say, for instance, the award was for $1 million, our group makes sure that that $1 million account is set up properly in ASAP. And then the grantees can go draw down those funds when they have allowable costs. So it is a treasury system that is designed to make the payment process go more smoothly, and NIFA uses that. Our second group is our second branch is our financial accountability and reporting section. Again, it boils down to two main things that they're doing. They're tracking the cash flows related to NIFA's grants. As has already been mentioned, our budget is roughly about $1.7 billion in the current year, and year after year, we're seeing about 50,000 plus transactions related to that, individual drawdowns from ASAP, and roughly about $1.4 billion per year. So we have a group that is tracking those cash flows and making sure that those are accurately and timely reported. The second duty is that we do a lot of reporting, and I'm giving one example here in the slide. We're providing data to comply with the Data Act. So every federal contract and every federal financial award shows up in usaspending.gov. And so all of our grant activity is supposed to show into USA Spending. And part of this branch's responsibility is to ensure that that data is accurate and is flowing and is displayed to the public in USA Spending. As Chris was mentioning, for AMD, we too have a focus on customer service. We're serving our grantees to make sure that they can access their funds in ASAP. We're doing traditional accounting work to track cash flows and make sure our obligations are recorded appropriately. With that, I think I will hand it over to Katina Hansen to talk about her division.
So Katina will be talking about the Policy and Oversight Division. She's our division director for that activity, and she'll introduce you to opportunities and the functions of policy and oversight. Katina?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us. I am over the Policy and Oversight Division. This division, again, is supporting the grant process from start to finish. Within this division, we have an oversight branch and a policy branch. The policy branch really, it looks at traditional financial policy related to appropriations bills from the development of the statute, working with the budget staff, also looking at any authorizing language that's coming through and what exists there and helping to interpret that. If there's regulations to be developed, we would be developing those regulations as well in concert with the program side of NIFA. We also, one of the main focuses, and especially right now as we have a smaller staff, we're really focused on those requests for proposals and making sure that they're done in a way that is consistent across the agency and also done timely so that we can get those applications in and eventually to an award position. We are within that program branch still building that out. We have added on a program policy specialist. We do have within that branch some financial policy specialists and also policy analyst positions that will potentially be filled soon. We have a policy branch chief position that is open there that will likely be announced soon. And then on the oversight side of the division, we are looking at information from the single audit to any kind of audits that come through from Office of Inspector General, GAO, any reviews or site visits that need to be done or coordinated through that branch. We are also working on indirect costs and internal controls. That branch covers a wide range of functionalities. And so as we start to add on staff there, we'll be developing that out as well. So there's hiring within all of those areas anticipated soon within that oversight branch. And we do have a branch chief there, Linnell Doan. So she is working on coordinating that. And we also work with a lot of contractors to help with things like enterprise risk management and other activities that are related to internal controls and oversight. Next slide, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so on that note, I want to thank Waits and Katina for sharing information on their important work that they do in their organizations and the opportunities that exist with there for your interest, and hopefully you see opportunities there to reach out through usaidjobs.gov. A little bit more about why work for NIFA. Certainly we're really on the cutting edge when it comes to the needs of food and agriculture. So innovation is by nature necessary for us to improve our effectiveness and efficiency, ultimately for the nation's well-being. So that has far-reaching impacts, and certainly addressing the nation's priorities for agriculture. We have a dedicated and passionate staff, and we're looking for more dedication and passionate staff from talented folks. We have strong support from our stakeholders, partners, the administration, and Congress for the programs that we deliver. I think they all recognize the importance of NIFA and the work that we do in the delivery of these programs. And we certainly have visionary leadership. We're addressing real and emerging challenges for the nation and the world in food and agriculture. So hopefully we've captured your interest, and look forward to opportunities for you and joining our organization. On that note, I'll turn it back over to Bill, and we'll see if we have any questions that we can help address from the audience. Bill?
Thank you very much, Matt. You know, that why slide is really important. You know, and OGFM is a very exciting part of our organization. You know, we have a budget of about $1.75 billion, billion with a B, and every cent goes through that organization that you just heard about, and our budget staff is responsible for not only formulating those budgets but also executing those budgets. And one of the exciting things about working for NIFA is that approximately 96% of that money goes out as payments to states, largely to support land-grant universities like Mizzou and University of Arkansas, and University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Lincoln and Haskell, and some of the other 1862, 1890, 1994 universities. And it's really an exciting thing, accomplishing our mission through those universities and other organizations, including nonprofit organizations and some private industry. And to do some, it really is an exciting mission, and it's a great way to make a difference. I do have a few open questions here. In the job descriptions, do they list what branch the position is being filled? And if you could answer that question, maybe even elaborate on that a little bit as far as what else you can expect to see in a position description. Matt, who would you like to address that?
I think I can probably take that. Typically, in any announcement, we would identify where in the organization it would be. So if we're looking for policy and oversight, it will lay out that activity. So it should be pretty clear from any job announcement we make where in the organization that position would reside.
There's a one for the awards management division, and I'll ask our personnel folks to also weigh in on this. But is there a minimum education requirement for positions within the awards management division? And I just want to stress, we will employ people and are looking for people in many different levels in our organization. But since it's an AMD question, Chris, I'd like you to weigh in on this, and if you need any help from our HRD folks, they're here to help you.
Well, hopefully I get it right. The HR people will tell me after the fact, right? So for grant specialist positions, which is the bulk of the positions within the awards management division, there are no positive education requirements. Certainly, education can be used to come in at entry-level grants. For example, if you have a master's degree, you could come in as a GS9 grant specialist. without any real prior experience in grants management. And that would apply to somebody that had a law degree, for example. They could come in at the GS9 level position as well. But what really gets people elevated for a lot of the folks that come in, they're coming at 9, 11, 12 or 13, even 14 levels. The basis for those grade levels is their experience, their relevant experience to the types of work that we do in awards management. So oftentimes, when we did our first hiring, for example, we saw a number of applicants who have prior experience working with sponsored agreements offices at universities. We often see people that have a fair amount of programmatic experience doing the grants aspects as well. So that's really what we're looking for is if you've got experience doing pre-award, award, post-award, closeout related functions in your current positions or in prior positions, based on the complexity of that work would help you to land either at the 9, 11, 12, 13, 14 levels.
Thank you very much, Chris. This next question, I'm going to, it's kind of an inside joke at NIFA. It goes to Katina Hansen. Katina, does the policy department hire attorneys?
Well, I would say that the policy division is still working on what those announcements will be for all of the positions within both of the branches within policy and oversight. Certainly an attorney might qualify for one of those positions, especially the financial policy positions or the policy analyst positions. We do have an attorney running AMD right now as acting, but we generally are working very closely with our Office of General Counsel and making sure that our policy analysis is in line with their legal interpretation.
Thank you.
Bill, if I could add to that, I'd like to note that acting director is a reformed attorney. But keep in mind for anyone who is an attorney on the line, there are a lot of jobs in the federal government where your skill set is very applicable, even though you may not have the title attorney advisor or some derivative of that. All these positions require the interpretation of statutes and regulations and using the strong analytical skills. Certainly a good writing is always appreciated in the federal government when creating memos, doing backgrounds, submitting issues to our general counsel. So the skill sets that you have as an attorney are certainly valuable skill sets in the federal government, regardless of the position.
And I will point out, while we have this question related to, who might qualify in these different areas, we do have some positions that will be announced within our oversight side at the minimum that will be require that accounting background, the 24 hours of accounting. I know that the majority, if not all of those within the financial management division are accounting positions. But we also are hiring for a wide variety of other positions within the Office of Grants and Financial Management in the different divisions that do not require that accounting background. They're just based on your experience and based on your level of education.
And as Chris said, that skill set that you have as an attorney or with a JD degree is Chris is certainly not the first attorney someone with a JD degree to ever work for NIFA. Those folks we find to be very well educated and very useful in many ways. I have a great question from Dan McKean. I have been on the receiving side of a federal grant, but not on the design and awarding of the grant. Does that help or hurt me in any way?
I can fill that, Bill, at least
Sure.
partly. Yeah, we have people who are currently on our staff who are on the recipient side of the equation. as I noted earlier on, we're a customer service focused organization. There's a lot of stakeholders involved in the grants process, and having people from a cross section of that stakeholder group really enhances our ability to be able to provide that good customer service. Certainly there's a limitation on what you know coming in some ways, but in some ways you enhance that knowledge base because you have experiences that others who have only been on the federal side have had, or if they've just been on the programmatic side. So it really takes a cross section to build a great team that has a broader breadth of knowledge and understanding. And I want to emphasize that with that customer service, we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to foster relationships with our partners, to understand what their needs are. Because unlike a contract where the agency just goes and buys 100,000 widgets for $100,000 and you either perform or you breach your contract, here our focus is not on breaches of contract and that type of stuff. Our focus is on ensuring that our programs are successful. And for our programs to be successful, sometimes we need to be able to stand in the shoes of our partners and assist them so that they can advance the objectives of the award. And so, yes, having that knowledge and that experience can be very valuable.
Thank you, Chris. That was an excellent answer to Dan's question. Question from Andrew. Andrew wants to know, do you need to have an accounting or finance degree or similar work experience to be considered for those positions in NIFA?
So I'll just reiterate a little bit what I said earlier. I think we're hiring for multiple different types of positions within OGFM and the budget office. And so we are really looking for a wide variety of folks. You'll need to look at that announcement and make sure that you qualify. There are some positions that are specifically looking for an accounting background, but there's many other positions where we're looking for a different skill set to help us to be successful in our grant management and our customer service.
A question from Chuck, my kind of guy. He has an MBA. He says, I have an MBA and 17 years of accounting, oversight, and management experience in the financial services area. It seems like budget and financial management is a logical choice. Other areas have piqued my interest, but not sure if my background fits other areas. I came out of joined the organization with an MBA with a little bit less experience, but in the ag sector, so I went the program route. Chuck, any other one like to address Chuck's question about an MBA with a good deal of experience mid-career?
So I think it's going to depend on your experience and also the other applicants to a position, which position you're looking at. Someone with an MBA could be very successful if they have some grants management experience or some experience in policy or experience on the finance side. So I think that, we are looking for a broad applicant pool so that we can pull the best people for the best positions. And that would be, my response to that. I don't know if others have additions.
Thanks, Tina. This is Waits. I'll just mention that one of the staff accountants we hired recently had spent her entire career in the financial services arena, and she's making the transition to federal financial accounting. But so we do welcome those of you with MBAs over on the accounting side as well. So.
Matt asks, may I ask if there are any openings for grant management specialists, GS 12, 13 level? And if not, may I ask when those positions would be available?
Yeah, so currently we've just received a cert for grants management specialists at the 9, 11, 12 ladder and at the 13, which is a team lead position. We just received those from HR. So we're currently in the process of setting up interviews for a second round of hires. And so the deadline for that is passed. Once we've gone through and made selections, then we'll have a better understanding of the remaining positions that we have. If we have additional positions at that time, then we'll post those opportunities again on USA Jobs. So a timeline for that, I would expect probably in the next month, we'll know whether or not we're going to need to post for additional specialist positions.
And Chris, we have a follow-up. Would you explain what a cert list is?
So that is,
HR people here are here to help you if you need it.
oh, I was going to put it in very layman's terms. So that's the list of effectively the pre-approved people who've met the basic qualifications for the position and the grade that was announced. So effectively, that's the short list. It's the group that the hiring managers can choose from to select who they want to interview and ultimately who they want to select for the position. So I put disclaimer on that up front. That's the layperson explanation.
Gotcha. Would our HR folks like to explain a little bit more about that part of the process? Or maybe our HR folks wouldn't like to explain that part of the process. Okay, our Q&A box is empty, so we're going to give it just another minute or two to see if there are any follow-up questions. Okay, follow-up questions going once, oh, there we go. Are there currently any summer internships available? I can take this one. At this point in time, we're really, we usually hire a bunch of summer internships. However, we're really busy right now filling full-time positions, and it takes almost as much to fill a full-time position as it does to fill a summer internship. So we're not utilizing summer interns as much this summer as next, but that's a great way to get some experience. And and there are many different agencies within the USDA that are hiring for summer internships. Wondering if our folks in the HR arena might talk about some of the other agencies' availability for summer internships. Kelly, Kimberly, Cassie?
Hi, this is Cassie. I'm not really sure about the other agencies. So when you say other agencies, are you speaking about ARS and ERS and NAS? Is that what you mean?
ARS, ERS, NAS, any of the other agencies, even outside of the REE mission area?
I'm not quite sure. Kelly Martin probably will be the best person to answer that. She is our branch chief and oversees all the other areas. I only really have a focus on NIFA, so I'll turn that over to Kelly.
Kelly, can you help us?
Hi, sorry, couldn't get my video to pop up. Yeah, I don't know that we have a master list outside of what's on USA Jobs to show what interns we do have available. Those, of course, would be applicable to our mission area. USA Jobs does offer any open internship across the federal government. That would be the best place to go to see what is currently available.
So USA Jobs is really the place that people ought to watch when they're looking for internships.
Yes, that is
Okay.
where we post all of our open positions across the federal government. So that would be the best place to monitor.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
We have an anonymous attendee that says, apologize if I missed this, but am I wondering how this area is involved with the RFI process? I want to take a little bit of license as moderator, and I'm thinking that you're talking about the RFA, request for application license. If not, you can re-ask it. but our policy group under Katina Hansen is responsible for working with the program group to write all of our requests for applications that people would ultimately respond to. Katrina, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so we would handle either an RFI and RFA, and some other agencies, they do RFPs. But the request for information, we do actually utilize that tool as well. If we're getting ready to set up a new program or we're having major changes to a program, we might use that tool. But every request for application goes through the policy branch. So we are working very closely with our counterparts on the program side to make sure that everything that comes out of NIFA is consistent as far as how those RFAs are structured, and making sure that they meet the law as far as what are the requirements under that program. So yes, we are heavily involved in that process, and make sure that everything works with the program, and that they sign off on it as well. And then we actually do the posting to grants.gov.
Thank you, Katina. Scott has a question. You mentioned your grants management system and the Treasury developed payment system. Are these different from, but analogous to, grant solutions and PMS that are used by other federal departments? Scott sounds like he's got a lot of background information that might be useful to us. Wait.
Yeah, so this is, I can take this question. So the short answer is yes. Different agencies use a host of different grant applications. Some use several grant applications for managing their various aspects of the grant lifecycle or the entire grant lifecycle. So Easy Fed Grants is a USDA department solution that's used by 7 agencies right now. Should be 2 more coming on board soon. So it's analogous to a grant solution. And HHS's payment management system, PMS, is analogous to ASAP. Treasury also offers this electronic drawdown payment method for agencies. The difference in the analogy is PMS costs agencies money and Treasury's ASAP is free.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. And an anonymous attendee asks, I guess I asked the question because I am interested in how to keep more involved with the agricultural industry stakeholders outside of funds distribution process. Yeah, and one of the, outside of the funds distribution process and the agricultural industry stakeholders, who's outside of the transactional area where the Office of Grants and Financial Management deals with, in the more programmatic arena, with the agricultural industry stakeholders, our national program leaders and our program specialists are really keeping involved with those agricultural industry stakeholders. And so, while our OGFM group is also very knowledgeable about those folks, the people that have the real relationships, and as far as non-transactional scientific and programmatic relationships with those folks, are our national program leaders and our program specialists. So if you're interested in the agricultural industry, even if you have a financial background, you might look at a program specialist position, which is frankly how I entered the agency years ago with an MBA. We got time. Yeah, let's take one. Let's take one more. Thank you. I come from industry and looking for this type of interaction as part of your career. you know, and I guess I'll finish up on that note. You know, if you're looking for being able to interact with the agricultural business, and I'm not just talking about cows and plows, I'm talking about some of the exciting things that are going on with robotics and with the you know, with the genome, you know, genome and gene editing, and some of the exciting things that's happening with big data. Even if you have a financial management background, you know, if you would want to go to work for OGFM, you know, that would provide you some pretty important context. You know, so everything that's coming across your desk, it is not a, you know, complete, you know, it is not a complete, I wouldn't say mystery, but, you know, a completely abstract concept. If you have some agricultural background or industry, you know, interest in the agricultural industry, you know, it's not a requirement, but it helps. And but if you you know, really have an interest, you might also be interested in you know, becoming a program specialist, which is a great way to start your career in the ag industry. So at that, Matt, do you have any final words for the group? We've exhausted the Q&A file, and we've also exhausted our time. Do you have anything, any parting words?
Just thank our participants and hope that they got value out of this webinar. And we certainly look forward to presenting opportunities to them in the not too distant future. Encourage them to keep their eye on usajobs.gov for emerging opportunities that we'll be posting. So hopefully they're still interested, and that this has been an effective conveyance of information for the opportunities that NIFA has within OGFM and the budget organization.
Well, thank you, Matt. I'm sure after today, they're even more interested than they were before. So thank you very much to the presenters, and thank you very much to the panelists for your intelligent questions. And we look forward to seeing your applications. And I look forward to interacting with you in Kansas City sometime. At that, I'll dismiss the meeting and ask everyone to be safe and have a good rest of your day. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.